The bank's foreclosure notice felt like a hot brick pressed against my spine every time I moved. I had it folded twice in my back pocket as I drove up the narrow road to High Point, the old cabin sitting above Silver Ridge like it was judging everyone below. The higher I climbed, the thinner the air felt. Pine needles were smeared across the wet asphalt. The sky was low and full of rain that had not decided to fall yet. "Do not mess this up, Kyler," I muttered, fingers tight on the wheel. My dad's construction company was not just in trouble. It was bleeding. This job was the only rope I could see. The cabin came into view at the last curve. Locals called it the Eyrie, like it was some kind of nest in the clouds. Up close, it looked more like a tired bird. The porch leaned left. The railings sagged. The foundation corners were chewed up with rot. The land was expensive. The view was priceless. The house itself looked like it had been holding its breath for years. I killed the engine and listened to the silence. No highway noise. No neighbors. Just wind in the pines and one small sound from inside the house. Upstairs, a curtain moved. One quick twitch, then still. Someone watching. I lifted my tool bags like I belonged there. Tape measure. Level. Moisture meter. Basic armor. Gravel crunched under my boots as I crossed the clearing. The air was cold enough to sting the back of my neck. There was a note taped to the mailbox. White paper. Sharp handwriting. Start tomorrow. Do not knock before 9 a.m. Stay outside. Hey. No greeting. No welcome. No name. I looked at the front door. It stayed closed. So I stayed outside. I crouched by the porch post and pressed the moisture meter to the wood. The needle jumped high. The rot wasn't just surface damage. It went deep. The wind pushed through the pines and the post shivered under my palm like it was tired of standing alone. I walked the perimeter of the cabin, boots soft on wet ground. The sill boards were dark where water had been licking at them for seasons. I made notes on the back of an old invoice. Sister the joists. New posts. Patch the deck. Brace the wall. I folded the paper so hard it left a mark in my thumb. I wasn't just fixing a porch. I was trying to hold up a house that had decided to fall apart at the same time my father's company did. Earl's Diner sat on the edge of town, all chrome, grease, and loud voices that stuck to your clothes. The bell over the door rang every time someone stepped in, like it needed to tell the whole room. Benji was already in a booth when I walked in, drowning a pancake in syrup. At 22, he had fast hands, faster jokes, and more loyalty than sense. His phone buzzed on the table. The screen flashed blank for a second before he flipped it face down. "You gonna keep pretending that isn't happening?" I asked, sliding into the seat across from him. "If I don't hear it, it's not real," he said, shoving half the pancake into his mouth. "Must be nice," I said. He chewed, swallowed, and pointed his fork at my hip. "You're the one with a foreclosure notice in your jeans," he said. He was not wrong. I pulled out my sandwich. Turkey, sharp cheddar, mustard with a bite strong enough to wake my tongue. My stomach had been tight since dawn. The first bite felt like the first deep breath I'd taken all day. Benji lowered his voice. "Vance was at the hardware store," he said, asking questions. My chest tightened. "About what?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. "About who's working at High Point," he said. "How long you'll be up there." "About the owner." He called her that burned-up pianist like it was funny. I stared at the table for a second. So that was how the town talked about her. The woman hiding in the cabin I was fixing. The woman who only signed her note with an A. "Keep your head down," I said. "Hard to when he's everywhere," Benji muttered. Earl slid fresh coffee onto the table, black and hot. "Vance doesn't lose," he said. Quiet but firm. "He waits until you're tired, then he pushes." On the drive back up the mountain, the sun dropped behind the ridge. Shadows stretched long between the trees. At a pullout, a black SUV sat facing the direction of the cabin. Clean. Shiny. Wrong for this road. It did not move. It just sat there, watching. 5 seconds later, it rolled away slow and smooth. Like money with eyes. 3 days into the job, the routine dug in. I arrived at 9 on the dot. I worked outside all day. I left at 5. I never saw her. The only sign that someone lived inside was the way the air changed near the front door. Cooler. Filtered. Like the house was holding its own breath. The blinds stayed shut. The lights stayed low. On the 4th morning, something new sat on the top step. A small white cooler. No note. I opened it. Inside was a sandwich, wrapped tight in wax paper. Roasted vegetables. Hummus. Thick bread toasted just enough to crunch. Next to it, a cold water bottle, beads of condensation sliding down the sides. No explanation. Just food. I should have eaten it standing up in 10 seconds like I always did. Instead, I sat on the bottom step and leaned my shoulder against the porch post I had braced that morning. The pine smell was strong, sap and wet bark mixed together. My hands ached from fighting old screws. I unwrapped the sandwich slow. The first bite was warm and smoky. Salt and char and something with a little heat. I closed my eyes for half a second. Not because it was fancy, because it was made with care. My gaze stayed on the warped boards in front of me, the posts that still needed replacing, the rot that still needed cutting out. But my chest loosened a little. My jaw unclenched. I finished the sandwich, drank the water, put the cooler back by the door, and went back to work. In return, I started fixing things I did not have to. The porch rail had a splinter that could rip skin from a hand. I ran my palm along it, felt the snag, then took sandpaper and worked it until it was smooth. Nobody asked me to. It was just one less way this house could hurt someone. Then came Thursday. Rain had finally started. A slow, steady drizzle that found every gap and crack. I was under the deck, flat on my back in the damp dirt, trying to convince a rusted bolt to move. My shoulders burned. My hands shook from the effort. That was when I heard it. Not the groan of old wood. Not the tap of rain. A crash. Then a short, strangled sound that did not belong to the house at all. I shoved myself out from under the porch, banging my shoulder on a joist, and scrambled to my feet. "Era," I called without thinking. Silence. My heart hammered in my throat. "I'm coming in," I said. Her note had said to stay outside. That rule burned in my head for half a second. Then I went through the door anyway. The kitchen was darker than it should have been in the middle of the afternoon. Every blind was pulled down tight, cutting off the gray light from outside. The only glow came from a small lamp over the sink. It threw a pale circle on the counter and left the rest of the room in shadows. Shattered pottery covered the tile floor near the island. A streak of water ran through it where it had spilled, shining under the small lamp like a thin river. A knife lay on the floor, well away from the broken pieces, its handle wet. Era was on the ground, curled on her side near the cabinet. Her back was to me. One arm was clamped tight across her chest. Her other hand clawed at the sleeve of her sweater, yanking it down over her wrist like she was trying to erase what I could see. "Don't," she rasped. "Don't look." Her voice scraped, raw and low. She turned her face toward the cabinet, pressing her cheek into the wood like that was safer than letting me see her. I stopped where I was and lowered my voice. "I'm looking at your wrist," I said. "That's it." Blood dotted the white tile. Not gushing. Slow. Dark. "I'm fine," she said. The words came out stiff and automatic, like she had said them 1,000 times before. Her fingers shook as she grabbed at her sleeve and tried to pull it lower. The fabric caught on her skin. She sucked a sharp breath in, knuckles whitening. I crouched a little, staying back, so I could reach her without hovering over her. "Let me see," I said. "No," she snapped. The word was strong, even if her hand was not. I raised both my hands, palms out, to show I was not going to grab her. I grabbed a dish towel from the counter, folded it in half, and placed it on the floor where she could reach it. "Press that on it," I said. "Hard. That's all." She did not move for a second. Then she snatched the towel and slammed it down on her wrist so hard she winced. She held it there with that same mix of control and anger. Her breathing came fast, but not wild, like she had learned how to breathe through pain on purpose. "Do you have a first aid kit?" I asked. A small nod. "Where?" I asked. "Pantry," she said, voice still turned toward the cabinet. "Top shelf. White box." I moved to the pantry, grabbed the kit, and brought it back. I set it down near her hand and knelt again. I made sure I was at an angle where she did not feel trapped. "Okay," I said. "When you're ready, I'm going to wrap it. You're in control. You move your hand when you choose." Her throat moved as she swallowed. Slowly, she lifted the towel. Just enough so I could see the cut. It was not very deep, but it was ugly. A thin, jagged line where a shard of pottery had sliced her skin. Blood had smeared along her forearm. The skin around it looked strange, pale and shiny in patches, as if it had been hurt a long time ago and never forgotten. I kept my face neutral. No flinching. No staring. I only looked at what I had to look at. Her wrist. The cut. The place that needed help. I cleaned it with a wipe from the kit, talking through each move before I made it. Not to fill the space, but to give her time to brace. This is going to sting, I said. 3 seconds. She hissed when the wipe touched her skin, but she did not pull away. The muscles in her jaw jumped. I patted the cut, pressed gauze over it, and wrapped her wrist in clean white bandage. My fingers brushed her skin by accident once. It felt too warm, too tight. The bandage settled in place. Solid. Secure. Better, I said. She kept her head turned, eyes on the cabinet grain, but her shoulders dropped a notch. Leave, she whispered. Please. I stood up. I wanted to say 100 things. That it was okay. That she didn't have to hide. That I had seen scars before, and they didn't scare me. But this wasn't about what I wanted. So I just said, if it throbs too much, ice it for 10 minutes. Fresh towel. She did not answer. At the doorway, I paused. The cooler, I said, nodding toward the sink where it sat on the counter. The sandwich was good. I walked out before she had to respond. The next morning, the cooler was back on the steps. Inside was another sandwich. Same careful hands. Same steady care. That day, the front door was open an inch when I arrived. Not wide. Not welcoming. Just cracked, like the house was taking a breath. Era stood just inside the frame. She wore dark jeans and a cardigan pulled tight, one hand at the collar, fingers gripping the fabric. The bandage I had wrapped yesterday peeked out from under the sleeve. Her hair was down, messy waves brushing her jaw. Her face was pale, but her eyes were sharp. You overcharged me, she said. No hello. Just that. I shifted the toolbox in my hand. I billed exactly what I quoted, I said. Materials and labor. The rot under that porch was worse than it looked from the street. I showed you the photos. She watched my face for any twitch, for any lie. Vance says 40% less is standard, she said. He says you're taking advantage because you know I can't drive into town easily. Hearing his name in her mouth made something in me harden. Vance doesn't build anything, I said. He sells words. And he wants this land. He's lived here longer than you, she said. As a vulture, I answered. The words came out sharper than I planned. I pulled a breath in and tried again. If you want a second estimate, get one, I said. I'll hand over my plans and walk away. No hard feelings. But don't quote the man who has been waiting for you to fail since the day the bank gave you this place. Her gaze slid past me down the road, through the trees, to the space where that black SUV had been watching days ago. She did not say she had seen it too. She did not have to. Work starts at 9, she said finally. Outside. Then she closed the door. Not slammed. Not locked. Just firm. The wind pushed against it a second later, making it creak. For a breath, it eased back a little, like it wanted to open again. Then a hand pressed flat against the inside and pushed it shut. Message received. Work, not talk. Fine. I knew how to do work. 2 weeks slid by like I was walking a tightrope stretched between this cabin and the bank. I hauled steel jacks under the porch and set them with care. I cut out rotten beams and sistered fresh joists to them until the whole frame felt stronger under my boots. I pulled up boards that broke in my hands and replaced them with lumber that smelled clean and new. The cabin complained the whole time. Every creak and groan sounded like a protest. But as the days went on, the sounds changed. Less strain. More settling. Era did not step outside while I worked. But the cooler kept showing up. A sandwich one day. Sliced apples and a hard-boiled egg the next. A thermos of coffee once so strong it made my eyes water. No notes. No thank you. A kind of truce. I answered it with my own quiet language. I stapled plastic over a cracked upstairs window before the next storm so no water would sneak in. I wedged a shaky porch step so it would not catch her foot. I adjusted the handrail by half an inch to clear the new post so it would not scrape bare skin. Small things. Things you do when you care if a house hurts its owner. On Friday, as I was setting a new post, her voice floated down from upstairs. Your line is crooked, she said. I looked up. The curtain on the front bedroom window was cracked an inch. I could see one eye, one cheek, part of a hand holding something like a pencil or a ruler. I checked my level. The bubble was a hair off. She was right. I loosened the screws, nudged the post, checked again. The bubble centered. I tightened everything, then stepped back. By the time I looked up, the curtain was closed again. The next day, the cooler held a sandwich with roasted peppers again. I took that as another kind of I saw that. That night, I stayed later than usual. The light dropped fast. The trees turned into black shapes against a dark blue sky. My truck headlights washed over the porch boards, and long shadows of tools leaned across the deck like tall ghosts. I was stacking leftover lumber by the rail when I heard it. Piano. Not from a speaker. Not background music. Real keys. Real weight. The sound slipped through the walls and out into the cool air. The melody was low and haunting. It climbed and curled, like it was trying to find a way through fog. It was beautiful in a way that went straight under my ribs. Then a note landed wrong. Not by much. Just a half-step slip. But it felt like a flinch. The music stopped. Silence. Then the first few bars again. Slower this time. Careful. Stubborn. I stood there, hand on a board, listening. Without thinking, I turned the truck off. The headlights died. The engine noise cut. The night folded around me, and the piano filled the space. The cabin, the clearing, the trees, all of it listening with me. When the song broke a second time, something in me moved before my brain could catch up. I walked to the front door and knocked once light. The music cut off. For a long second, nothing happened. Then the doorknob turned. The door opened halfway. Era stood there, barefoot, in old sweatpants and a thin long-sleeve shirt. Her hair was a mess, falling around her face in dark waves. Her cardigan hung loose, one side sliding off her shoulder. Her eyes were too bright. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I'm outside," I said quietly. "You opened the door." Her gaze dropped to the sawdust on my shirt, to my hands, to the splinters on my jeans. Then it flicked back up, full of conflict. "You heard," she said. "Yes," I said. "It's stupid," she whispered. "No," I answered. We stood there in the doorway with the night at my back and the faint piano smell of polish and wood behind her. She made a small sound in her throat, half frustrated, half tired. Then she stepped back from the door and left it open. Warm air slipped out past me. It smelled like lemon cleaner and old wood and something faintly smoky. I stepped inside. Not too far. Just enough. The piano sat in the center of the room like a dark animal. Black, polished, expensive. It did not match the worn floors and tired beams. It looked like something from another life. Era moved to the bench and sat. Her shoulders were tense. Her hands hovered above the keys without touching them. She started to play again. The melody returned. Strong, familiar, full of feeling. Then, halfway through a phrase, her right hand stumbled. She looked back at the keys. Her fingers shook as they rose again. They hovered over middle C, waiting, hesitating. I moved my hand from the wood to hers, slow, giving her time to pull away. She did not. My palm covered the back of her hand. Not pushing, just steady. Her breath caught. Her shoulders jumped once. "Your left hand is fine," I said soft. "Your right hand is scared. Let it be scared. Play anyway." She looked up at me fully then, eyes wet, daring me to flinch. I did not. She slid her hand out from under mine. Then she turned it over and set it back on top of my hand instead. Her choice. Her pace. She took a breath and began to play again, our hands touching on the keys, her fingers moving under mine. The wrong note came. This time she did not pull away. She kept going. The melody stumbled and then found itself, a little broken, but still beautiful. When she finished, her chest was rising and falling like she had just run uphill. She did not wipe her eyes. She let the tears sit there, shining in the lamplight. I slowly pulled my hand back, giving her space again. She turned on the bench to face me, moving like every motion cost something. "I have burns on my body," she said quietly. Her eyes did not drop. She forced them to stay on mine. "I know," I said softly. My voice did not shake. "Then let me hold your hand again," I thought. I did not say it yet. I waited to see if she would offer it. She did not look away when she said it. "I have burns on my body." Her voice was quiet, but the words landed heavy between us. She waited for me to flinch, to stare, to look at her with that mix of pity and shock she already knew too well. I didn't either. "I know," I said. Her eyes narrowed a little, like she thought I was lying. "You saw in the kitchen," she said, "when I cut my wrist. I felt your hand pause." "I saw a piece," I said. "Your arm. The way the skin looked different. Old burn. Not new." I kept my voice steady, not soft, not hard, just real. She swallowed and lifted her right hand, palm toward her, fingers curled. Her sleeve slid back an inch. I could see where her skin changed from smooth to shiny, where scar tissue twisted along the back of her hand and wrist. For most people, she said, this is enough for them to stare. She turned her hand slowly, showing me more. The scar climbed past her wrist and disappeared under the fabric of her sleeve. It goes up, she said. Across my arm, my side, my back. Pretty right. Her mouth twisted on the last word. I stepped closer until I was right beside the bench. Not crowding. Not backing off. May I? I asked. She looked at my hand, then at my face, then back at my hand again. Slowly, she nodded. I reached for her wrist and held it in both of my hands. The scar felt different under my fingers. Warm, smooth, and rough at the same time. I did not squeeze. I did not trace it like a map. I just held. This is part of you, I said. It is not all of you. She laughed once, a short sound with no humor. That's easy to say when it is not on your skin, she said. Maybe, I said. But I build houses that have been through storms. Fire scars them too. We do not throw them away. We repair them. We make them safe again. We keep what still stands. Her eyes filled, but the tears did not fall. She stared at my hands around her wrist like she was trying to decide if she believed me. I used to play in big halls, she said. City lights. Fancy stages. I wore dresses that showed my arms. Then the fire happened. One bad wire under a stage. One bad night. I woke up in a hospital that smelled like bleach and plastic. Half my body wrapped. My hands stiff. Everyone came to see if I was still a great talent. They stared at the bandages. She took a breath. After that, every time I played in public, I could feel eyes on my skin, not on the keys. Kids asked their parents what was wrong with me. Grown adults looked away like they were being polite. So you came up here, I said. So I ran, she corrected. She looked down at our hands. People in town call me the burned-up pianist when they think I cannot hear, she said. Vance says it with a smile. I heard, I said. My jaw clenched. At the diner. Her fingers twitched in my grip, like she wanted to pull away and hold tighter at the same time. Kyler, she said, standing the name up between us like a test. You are not scared? Of your burns? I asked. No. Her chin lifted, like she was daring me to prove it. I lifted her hand higher, brought it slowly to my chest, and rested her palm over my shirt, right where my heartbeat was hammering. Her scarred skin was warm against me. Can you feel that? I asked. She nodded once. This is what I notice, I said. Your hand. Warm. Strong. Shaking a little, but still here. If you want to hide it from the town, that is your choice. But you do not have to hide it from me. Her mouth trembled. Nobody says it like that, she whispered. Nobody is me, I said. For a moment, the only sound was our breathing and the faint tick of the cooling house. She lifted her other hand and caught the front of my shirt. Her fingers hooked in the fabric, pulling me closer. Then why are you still standing there? She asked. I moved. One hand slid to her waist, fingers pressing into the soft fabric of her shirt. The other stayed on her wrist, still gentle. I leaned in slow enough for her to stop me if she wanted. She did not. Her eyes closed. Our mouths met halfway. The kiss was not soft at first. It was tight and held back, like both of us had been pushing things down for too long. Heat flashed up my spine. Her hands fisted in my shirt. I could feel the tremble in her arms and the way she leaned into me like she was tired of carrying her own weight. I did not push it further. I did not grab. I let the kiss say just this. I see you. I am here. I am not running. When I pulled back a little, I searched her face. Do you want this? I asked, voice low. Her eyes opened. There was fear there. And something else. Want. Real and sharp. Yes, she said. She swallowed. Do not make it pity. If it was pity, I said, I would not be the one shaking. Her laugh came out soft and surprised. She rested her forehead against mine for a second, then pulled back. Go home, Kyler, she said. It is late. We will ruin this if we do too much at once. She was right. I nodded and stepped back. At the door, I looked back at her. She was sitting on the bench, hand still resting where I had held it, shoulders loose for the first time since I met her. The bubble broke a few days later. I was at the lumberyard picking up more boards when I heard his voice behind me. Holloway, Vance said. You are hard to catch. I turned. Silas Vance stood there with his perfect hair and his perfect boots that had never seen real mud. Two of his men leaned against a black SUV nearby, arms folded. I'm working, I said. You should try it. He laughed like we were friends. Oh, I do work, he said. I move money and people. Less splinters. He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his cologne under the sawdust and diesel. You know the bank called me, he said. They are very nervous about your daddy's little company. Very ready to move on. My jaw tightened. I'm handling it, I said. Are you, he asked. Or are you using her? My stomach went cold. What are you talking about? I asked. That poor burned pianist up there, he said. You get the Porch job. You charge her more than she knows. You take her money to patch your sinking ship. Does she know about the notice in your back pocket? I took one step forward. The men by the SUV straightened, ready. Vance did not flinch. His smile only got colder. Careful, he murmured. You swing at me, and I walk straight into town and tell everyone you tried to hit me because I asked about a woman's safety. I wanted to break his nose. Instead, I turned my fists into open hands and let them hang by my sides. You do not care about her safety, I said. You care about her land. He shrugged. Land needs strong hands, he said. Not damaged ones. He flicked his gaze toward my rough knuckles like they were a joke. I would hate, he added, for her to find out you have been hiding things. I walked away before I did something I could not take back. But his words stuck. On the drive up the mountain, the sky turned heavy. Dark clouds built over the ridge. Wind picked up, tossing branches. When I reached the gate to High Point, it was locked. My tools were stacked outside the fence in a neat pile, like trash waiting for pickup. My chest dropped. Era, I called, shaking the chain. Era, open the gate. The front door opened. She stepped onto the porch wearing jeans and a long-sleeved shirt. Her burns were hidden again. Her face was blank. Too blank. Is it true? She called down. Is what true? I asked. Are you in foreclosure? She asked. Is your company broke? The wind blew hard enough to push the words between us like stones. Yes, I said. The company is in trouble. The bank is on me. That is all true. Her fingers curled around the porch post. So you needed this job? She said. I needed the work, I said. I did not plan you. Her eyes flashed. Vance says you overcharged me to cover your own debts, she said. He says you knew I could not check. That I would not go into town. That you saw me as easy. I shook my head. I billed what I quote, I said. If you want every receipt, every bill, I will bring them. I will lay them out on this porch, and you can go through each line. She looked past me to the trees, then back at me. Take your tools, she said. Her voice did not shake. That made it worse. Go. Era, I said. Please do not let him make this about money. You know me. You know how I work. You know who was there when you bled. For a second, something in her eyes wavered. Then it went hard again, like she had slammed a door inside herself. I also know I did not ask you to walk into a storm with me, she said. I am tired of being someone's charity. Go. She stepped back inside. For one breath, the door stayed open. Wind pushed at it, blowing cool air around my face, carrying the faint smell of lemon and piano polish out to me like a memory. Then the door slammed. The lock clicked. I stood there in the rising wind with my tools at my feet and the mountain getting darker all around me. I picked up each bag and board one by one and carried them back to the truck. It felt like hauling out my own hope. 2 days later, the sky turned the color of an old bruise. The radio called it a microburst. Benji called it the mountain trying to kill us all. Wind hit town so hard the street signs shook. I was boarding up the front windows of my shop when the power cut out and the lights died. Rain came in sideways. Not soft, not gentle. It slammed against the glass and roof like it hated everything built by human hands. The back door flew open. Benji stumbled in, soaked to the skin, hair plastered to his forehead. Tree down on Route 9, he shouted over the roar. Mudslide warning on the north side. North side. High Point. My stomach dropped. She's up there, I said. You do not know that, he shot back. The sheriff sent a warning out. People were told to come down. Era, leaving her piano, leaving her house, and fighting through this wind? No, she's up there, I repeated. Kai, the roads are washing out, he said. If you drive up that grade and the hillside goes, you go with it. Let the rescue team handle it. I grabbed my truck keys, my emergency kit, and my rain jacket. She has a temporary patch on the west roof, I said. It will not hold in this. If that part goes, the whole side of the house will flood. She cannot run fast with half her skin fighting her. I did not wait for approval. The rain hit my face like pins as soon as I stepped outside. The world turned into streaks of gray and green. Trees bent like they were bowing to something angry. I drove. The wipers could not clear the windshield fast enough. Twice I had to stop and saw fallen branches out of the road, hands slipping on the wet wood, chainsaw screaming against the storm. Mud slid under my tires. The truck fishtailed once, then gripped again as I forced it up the road. My heart hammered so hard it hurt. When I reached the last turn, my stomach clenched. Part of the roof at High Point had peeled back like the lid on a can. Rain poured inside. The porch steps were a waterfall. The clearing was a mess of branches, leaves, and broken gutter. I slammed the truck into park and ran. "Era!" I yelled over the roar. "Era!" No answer. I shoved the front door. It stuck for half a second, then gave with a sharp crack. Cold water rushed around my boots. The living room floor was a shallow pool. Plaster dust floated like white foam. "Era!" I shouted again. A weak voice came from the direction of the kitchen. "In here." "Kyler." I pushed through the half-fallen doorway. Part of the ceiling tiles had come down. The island was splattered with dirty water and plaster chunks. The temporary patch I had planned to replace next week was flapping uselessly, torn open by the storm. She was on the floor beside the island, curled in on herself, arms wrapped around her ribs. Her hair was soaked. Her shirt clung to her. She was shivering so hard her teeth clicked. "You came back?" she whispered when she saw me. "I came to finish the job," I said, squatting down and helping her sit up. "Move now. The rest of this ceiling is not going to wait for you." She tried to stand, and her knees buckled. She grabbed my shirt, fingers digging into the fabric. Another groan split the house, long and deep. "Go," I said, half pulling, half lifting her toward the hall. The beam above the kitchen doorway let out a long, cracking noise. Old wood. Too much water. Too much weight. We ran. A chunk of ceiling came down behind us, smashing into the floor where she had just been. Something solid hit my shoulder. Pain exploded down my arm, white hot, stealing my breath. I stumbled, but did not let go of her. She clung to me, fingers clutching whatever they could grab, my jacket, my collar, my shirt. We made it into the hall and slammed against the opposite wall. Dust rained down. For a second the world was only noise. Her hand searched for my face in the dark, moving fast and clumsy until her fingers found my jaw. "You're hurt," she gasped. "I'll live," I said. My shoulder throbbed like fire. My fingers tingled. I kept my voice firm anyway. "Are you burned?" she asked, panic cracking through. "Just bruised," I said. "No more fire." She swallowed, breathing shaky, forehead resting against my chest. "I'm sorry," she choked out. "For believing him. For locking you out. For, not now," I said. "Save the speech for when the house is not trying to kill us." Even half laughing, she still shook. We waited in the hall, crouched against the inner wall, while the storm screamed at the windows and rain hammered the open roof. Time stretched. I listened to the structure like I listened to old wood on job sites. The creaks slowly changed from about to break to hanging on. When the worst of the wind moved on, the silence felt almost loud. By dawn, the storm had limped away over the ridge. The sky was gray but calmer. The mountain looked scraped raw. Branches everywhere. Mud streaks down the hill. The west side of the roof was a mess, but the walls still stood. We sat on the back steps wrapped in blankets I had dragged from the bedroom. My shoulder would be a rainbow of colors by nightfall. Her cheek had a new bruise where she'd hit the floor. We both looked like we had crawled out of a war. The air smelled clean. Fresh pine and wet. Dirt. Her eyes drifted down to my back pocket where a piece of paper stuck out, soggy from the storm. She reached over and pinched it free before I could stop her. Foreclosure notice. Soft now from sweat and rain and too much folding. She unfolded it and read. Her face did not show pity. It showed anger. Focused, sharp anger. "You weren't lying," she said quietly. "No," I said. There was no point in pretending. "The bank is done being patient. They want the shop. They want my father's name off their books." She refolded the paper slowly and set it on the step between us, face up. "I told you once I have money," she said. "You thought that meant charity." I stayed quiet. "I am not offering charity," she said. "I am offering an investment." I turned my head and really looked at her. Her hair was still damp, drying in dark waves around her face. Her blanket had slipped off one shoulder. Scar tissue ran along her neck and disappeared under her collar. She did not try to hide it from me. "I don't take handouts," I said. "Good," she answered. "Neither do I." She sat forward, elbows on her knees, blanket bunching at her waist. For the house, she said, we put everything in writing. Real scope, materials, labor, your usual rate. You show receipts. You do not discount because of my face. We are not doing favors. We are doing work. I nodded slowly. And for your company, she continued, we set up a separate contract. I put in capital as a silent partner. Real one. On paper. I get a defined share of profits until the investment is repaid plus a fair return. You keep your name. You keep control. You keep your pride. I get to keep the man who actually fixes things instead of the one who wants to take my land. My throat tightened. You trust me that much? I asked. She turned her head and met my eyes. I watched you brace my porch when everyone else said it should be torn down, she said. I watched you hold a beam with your own body in the middle of a storm. I watched you wrap my wrist without staring at my scars. She reached for my hand and took it. Her fingers slid over my knuckles, rough and cracked. She traced the calluses with her thumb. Your hands tell me more than your bank notice, she said. The morning was quiet. No cars. No voices. Just us and the slow drip of water from the eaves. Deal, she asked. I blew out a breath I had been holding for weeks. Deal, I said. We shook on it. Then she did not let go. She flipped our hands and laced her fingers through mine instead. And Kyler, she said. Yeah. She squeezed my hand gently, scar against callus. This, she said, is not part of the contract. This is mine. 6 weeks later, Silver Ridge tried to look fancy. The Heritage Gala filled the old hall with people in suits and dresses that didn't quite fit right. String lights ran across the ceiling. A band set up in the corner. The air smelled like perfume, old wood, and nervous pride. I stood near the back wall in a shirt with a borrowed tie. My hands felt strange without a tool in them. No matter how much I scrubbed, there were still faint lines of ground-in stain along my nails. Benji hovered by the buffet, loading his plate like the food might vanish if he did not stack it high enough. When he saw me watching, he grinned with his mouth full and lifted his glass in a crooked salute. The room got quiet all at once. She had arrived. Era stepped into the hall in a deep green dress that fit her like she had been poured into it. It was sleeveless. It did not hide anything. Burn scars climbed her arms, across her collarbone, and vanished under the fabric. Under the soft lights, they were pale and shiny and real. People looked. Some stared too long. Some looked away quickly, as if that made them polite. She did not lower her head. She did not grab for a shawl. She walked straight, shoulders back, chin up. Her gaze moved over the room once, passing the mayor, the donors, the gossipers, until it landed on me. Her face changed, just slightly. The corner of her mouth lifted. She walked past the important people and came straight toward me. Hi, she said. Her voice shook just a little from the walk through all those eyes. Hi, I said. My voice steadied for both of us. You look, she cut me off with a quick look. If you say brave, I will go back to the mountain, she warned. I smiled and shook my head. I was going to say you look like trouble, I said. Her shoulders relaxed. A real smile pushed through. Good, she said. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Vance across the room, watching us with a drink in his hand. His jaw was tight. There was no friendly curve to his mouth now. I did not look away first. The band started a slow song. Couples moved to the dance floor. The chatter rose again. Era turned back to me and held out her right hand. The burned one. No hiding. No rapping. Dance with me? She asked. Her voice was steady now. I did not hesitate. I took her hand in mine. Her fingers were warm. The texture of her skin under my thumb told the whole story of fire and healing and every day between. I have burns on my body, she had said. And now she was offering that hand to me in front of everyone. I stepped closer and placed my other hand at her waist. She moved in without flinching. We started to sway in time with the music. People were still looking. Let them. She leaned in, just enough that her forehead brushed my jaw. For the record, she whispered, I'm terrified. You're here, I whispered back. That's what matters. Her fingers tightened around mine. You held my hand in the kitchen, she said, voice low. And by the piano. You did not drop it when you saw the scars. You still want it. I pulled our joined hands up between us, just a little. Enough for her to see how tightly I held on. I held it then, I said. Let me hold it again. Her eyes softened. Whatever fear was left there mixed with something else now. Trust. Heat. A kind of peace. Okay, she said. We kept moving across the floor. My rough palm wrapped around her burned
If this
fingers.
story
Her
stays
scars
with your
against my
heart,
calluses.
don't forget to
Both of
like,
us marked.
subscribe, and share it with
Both
your
of us still
friends.
here. She was not hiding. Neither was I.